My childhood is a curious contrast. So it was a curious contrast in that there was, I would say, abject poverty, but also that joy of childhood. Start from the very beginning. I was born in 1989 in Wuhan, China, around the time of the Tiananmen Square protests. My mom remarried shortly after I was born to an American professor, so not my biological father. So we immigrated then to the United States. This was probably around 1990. I would love to say that our coming to America is the American dream of an immigrant's American dream coming to the United States, but unfortunately it was not. So it ended in divorce. My mother took my sister and I to live in the great state of Hawaii. So I'm told the story again that my mom selected Hawaii by closing her eyes and pointing at a map, and her hand landed on Hawaii. The fact that she pointed to premier vacation destination is not lost upon me. So I carry that fact very, very closely and dear. But yeah, we ended up in Hawaii and we started a life there. My mom was an immigrant, so she's a single parent at this time. She's an immigrant, doesn't speak the language very well, is not very in tune with the culture. So it was hard for her to find work and to support us. So yeah, we lived in poverty, we lived in housing projects. But at the same time, I'm a kid in Hawaii, so there's a lot of joy there because I'm a child, 5, 6 years old, going to the beach, hanging out at the beach, playing around with my sister, the friends around that I make. So I think for children, it's almost they will always find the joy in whatever situation they're in. So there was a big custody battle between my mother and her ex-husband over the custody of my sister. I remember it was during the daytime and we were just at home. The cops show up along with her father and I think some of the other family members. They show up and they take my sister. My mother's crying and screaming in the background. They're holding her back. And then I think I'm crying as well. Of course, I'm just a kid. You see cops come in, take your sister. All the family members are there. There's screaming, crying going on. So it's a pretty traumatic experience, a pretty traumatic memory from my childhood, and probably one of the most vivid memories I have of that time. It was a keen sense of loss and sorrow, and I remember crying about it. I remember just talking to my mom about it and saying, "Hey, it's a terrible time." So we were homeless, living on the beach, living out of our car. So it's just my mom and I driving around the island day to day, figuring out where to sleep, what to eat, where our next meal would come from. So this went on for a period of a couple years. So my mom is not a person who likes to stay in one spot very long. So she always liked to move around, and she was getting tired of Hawaii, being on an island in the same climate. So she's like, "Hey, let's do a change of climate. Let's go somewhere else." So we decided Washington State because she knew some people from Washington State. She had met people from there. She liked the people from the state. So what really precipitated the move was her positive impression of the people from that state. We got back on our feet mostly because she was able to find pretty good work there, and that helped me. There's this couple I remember. They were from our church that we attended at the time, and they gave me work. So I worked for them doing yard work, landscaping, and developed a pretty close relationship with them. The husband was actually a former Marine officer at that time. So he gave me some pointers on what I should do later on in life, and the Air Force was one of those pointers. I did relatively well in school and was able to apply to the Air Force Academy and eventually make my way there. Ever since freshman year of high school, it was a goal in the back of my mind to attend the Air Force Academy. And it was always this far off thing. I never thought I would actually make it. It was this prestigious thing that I was like, hey, if I go here, my education will be paid for, I'll actually get a paycheck and I'll have a guaranteed job afterwards. So when I finally made it there, it absolutely blew me away because I was like, I made it, never thought I would. I think a lot of people can look at my story and say, hey, this is a guy who pulled himself up by his bootstraps and he escaped the situation he was in, became a self-made man essentially. If Michael Zheng can do this and pull himself out, then why can't other people who are in similar situations do the same thing? And if they can't, it must be fault of their own. Of course, I worked hard and I worked diligently, but I would not be where I am today without the help of wonderful mentors, friends, family, and even strangers who came into our lives, into my life, and really shaped where I am today. So I'm not a self-made man. I would be nowhere without the people who helped me along the way. So I would ask that we approach it from a different perspective. And I would say that let's offer a bit of grace and a bit of compassion and give people the benefit of the doubt, because it's likely not their fault that they're stuck in that situation.